Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a discussion talking video about the Reef Knives F6. This is the Leiku inspired survival knife. I already have a video about it. I think it's actually a really entertaining video. Maybe go watch that if you haven't seen it yet. If you want to see use with a knife, like actually cutting, chopping, using it the way it's intended to be, and then my review of it there, that's probably the best video to watch right now. I'm going to tell you to go ahead and pause this, watch that one first. But if you'd just rather have a little discussion and chat about it, here's what I have to say. I really like this knife. I said in that previous video that this would be staying in my vehicle and it would become kind of my car blade. Normally I would do Kydex for a vehicle knife, like something that's going to stay in there, just because I don't like to get things wet and then not dry out. But the fact is, this is the biggest, best piece of 3V that I have, and I really do like the JRE sheaths. This is a high quality sheath. It seems like it was custom made for it. It fits so well, and I've just been really happy with the fitment. Plus, I can always throw on a carabiner, and I usually put a real heavyweight carabiner on here. I think this one's like a 500 pound or something like that. Maybe it's more. Maybe this is 1,000 pound. Feels like 1,000 pound. I usually put a really heavyweight carabiner on there in case I have to do something else, or just use it as a hanging piece for a hammock, which sometimes happens. I'll use one of these to just save weight, and so I don't have a heavier pack when I go out. I do like this a lot. And then it has the dangler piece. The dangler piece on these JRE sheaths, really high quality. It's a good leather, nice and smooth. Always been happy with the stitching. Haven't had any issues with inter-sheath slicing. Like when I put the knife back, it doesn't grab the side wall or do anything goofy like that and cut through. It seems like it's dropping in and out precisely where it should, and so that's a good sign of a sheath that was well thought through. I also like having these pass-through holes here. Sometimes I'll do things with those and attach something to it. I haven't opted to do that with these, but overall very happy with the sheath. And in the winter time, like when I wear a very long parka, I have an extremely long parka that goes down to almost my knees, and I'm 6'5". Sometimes I will put it on the top loop, and I'll take this carabiner and put it through that, and so I can actually almost reach my knife easily without lifting up my jacket too far. And normally that's just not an option when I wear a parka that is that big. So I like the sheath, I like the options. One of the most important things to me is just the ability to have a fire steel with. I do have a lighter in my jacket. In most of my parkas, there's a lighter. I carry one with me just because that's an easy source of ignition. And I fell in the snow earlier today and I needed to get warmed up. Now I'm in my little shoot shed here at the range, and so it's easy to warm up here. But when I'm outside and I get snow in the boots and it starts to melt and I get really cold, you know, your dexterity goes down and you need to have something to get a fire started relatively quickly. So a lighter is ideal, it's nice, but I actually am better with fire steels by far. In scenarios where I have fallen and gotten wet, one time it was in the winter, like now, it was very cold out. The lighter itself got soaked and it didn't work, and it was actually a really close to being a bad scenario. And so fire steel that time actually saved my hiney, and I just always want a fire steel on me, especially on a knife that's branded as a survival knife or advertised as a survival knife, and I'm going to use it in that capacity. Maybe in the worst scenario in the world, that whatever happens to me, I'm sure it won't, but if it happens, I want it on there. And so having it attached to the sheath is a great idea. A little bit of shock cord on there with one of my homemade kind of fire steel deals there. All right, so actually take this out. These two items right here, this is a really cheap $7 folding saw. I found that the teeth and the edge are nearly just as good as the Corona saw, probably just as good as the Silky saw, but not as comfortable. The Silky saws are higher quality for sure, but this is just super affordable. I can burn out the blades. And it doesn't bother me. I'll just throw it away. But I like what I can get away with these two cutting tools. Size-wise, both of them will actually fit in an upper pocket, or I can belt them and put them on a belt over my parka if I don't want to have to be digging for things if it's not snowing. So it's nice to have something kind of compact, and I can do a lot of processing. Depends on if I'm going to be backpacking and camping in a place where I need to bring an axe because it's really cold and I need to have a big long fire, or if I can just do, like my stove, if I can bring my wood stove and set up that one Tigris tent, I could process pretty much all that I need for a whole night, even on a really cold night, just between one of these, if it's a fresh blade, and this as long as it's nice and sharp. This combination is actually pretty foolproof, and I trust it quite a bit. Would I like a chainsaw? Yeah, I would. But if I'm backpacking and I'm sledding out, it's very unlikely that I'm going to bring a chainsaw. I'm probably just going to bring a few hand tools and get by with the minimums there. And it hasn't burned me yet. It's done well. This blade itself, though, it's just a super reliable knife. You know, it's very, very thick. When I first did that review, that video, again, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch that first video. When I first did that video, my main concern when I pulled this out of the package, I was like, wow, okay, I'm impressed because the balance point, if I can just show this to you, on a knife that is this big, look, like the blade hangs out. It's a 6-inch blade about. And I thought for sure it would be just overly blade heavy, but it's not. It's balancing right at that first finger trail. I'm really impressed that with these nice 3D sculpted scales that are not thin, they're nice and thick, and that's a great thing. I thought this would be either really blade heavy or real handle heavy. I thought it'd be one or the other, but it's actually just balanced out really well. It's a thick piece of steel though, and I tend not to go after knives that are super thick with the spine unless, here's the caveat to that, unless they're broad enough. If there's enough broadness to the blade, you can get down to a thin enough workable edge that's easy to strop up and touch up, and especially when it's 3V, guys, that's a big deal. Being that this is a 3V knife, I was kind of concerned about sharpening because 3V will eat up your sharpening blades and your stones and your diamond stones if you're kind of stupid with it. If you're trying to reprofile something really aggressively, it's just not going to be a good plan. You're going to go through too many belts, it's going to eat stuff up and grind into your stones. 3V is just really an impressive steel. That's why I like it as a survival knife. I want more of the hot rod steel and less of the have to strop it every 20 minutes kind of thing. I was concerned though about that stock thickness initially until I kind of noticed, well, this is a fairly broad blade. If I can just show you right there, it's a fairly broad blade. And on top of that, it is a unique grind. It's kind of like a saber grind, a little bit of convex with a V. I don't know how to talk about it accurately, but it's consistent, and they did do it consistently on both sides. It's not unevenly ground, and it works well with wood. I thought, well, a knife like that with a grind like that, I might struggle to make like feather sticks or a little bit of woodworking. And I know it's not meant to be a blade that is primarily for like crafting or carving. It's a survival knife, so it has to do lots of things. But I was actually really happy to see that it's not bad for those kinds of tasks. Even feather sticking, it does pretty good. All right, I'm not going to make this a feather sticking video, but it does a decent job considering it is a very thick knife. In general, feather sticks well, especially if I can use the knee draw method and kind of brace it against my knee. That's the way I prefer to do it with bigger, longer blades, and I think I'm actually better at making feather sticks that way. Anyways, so it could do, you know, more delicate tasks. That's really good. The ergonomics are the reason that I can put up with some of the thickness as well. Sometimes ergonomics are a little bit helped by a thicker blade, like just a better handle. That's true of this blade. It's helping a little bit. It's making it just that much better. I think even somebody with small or medium-sized hands, I think they'll realize this is a really, really nice handle, even for them, because it's not terribly broad. I could have made it, more broad if it was just a personalized blade for me alone, because I have XL size hands. But it's not something I would complain about either. It doesn't give me hot spots, and I've used this quite a bit. If you watch the video that I already posted, I've got quite a bit of time on this particular blade, using it in lots of ways. And one of the only critiques I really had was make sure you use a lanyard if you're chopping, which is not something I do a lot of. And that's like a 30-cent, fix. If you put a piece of paracord through there, you're good to go. And I just don't have a lot of critiques for it. Overall, I didn't want a survival knife that was a Scandi. Although I love Scandis, I really do. Some of my favorite grinds are, our blades are Scandi ground. I didn't want that in a hard use knife because I've seen Scandis wear pretty quickly. They're easy to sharpen, but they wear pretty quickly, and then on top of that, they do chip out sometimes. It's kind of a disappointing feature of thinner Scandi knives. And so for a vehicle survival type blade, I wanted something that was like the hot rod steel, pretty thick, something that I can use maybe a little bit in a prying kind of way if I needed to. I think I would feel comfortable with this. Something that is tough, Now, steel toughness is not the same as hardness. If you're not sure about that, go look it up online right now. But I needed something that had the steel quality called toughness, and this is tough. 3V is very tough, and the fact that it's thick, it is hardened to a place where I don't think it's going to very quickly dull. I think the edge is going to remain strong. I think it's cryo-treated as well. And it's flexible enough that here in Minnesota, when it's really cold and this steel is, let's say, on my hip, and it's the temperature of outside, which might be 10, 15, 20, 30 below zero, I need a tough steel that's not going to just snap. I try to keep my blades warm enough before I use them real hard so I don't risk snapping. But if I do have to use it pretty hard or I'm chopping on something, I just need a tough enough steel that can maybe just bend a little bit and then bend back. Especially when I'm batoning, and this has handled that. I've handled some really nasty knots with this thing, had no issues. I have not had to reprofile this one yet. The little one, the little 3-inch one or 2.9-inch one, I'll show an update to that. The F3 I did reprofile a little bit and thinned out the edge just slightly, but this one I haven't needed to yet. I've been able to strop this on my strop and get it back wicked sharp. I did hit it, let's see, probably after a month. I think I hit it on a ceramic rod just to realign the edge and any little bump that I was finding, because I was using it hard. And then I stropped it, and I'm really impressed because right now it feels factory sharp. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is a little thicker and there's a little bit more meat behind the edge. And so it's not really, really thin where it's just chipping and bending and removing material. I'm mostly just, when I strop it and I hit it with a ceramic, I'm mostly just realigning that edge. And I think they did a great job. Stu did a great job in designing this, testing it, and I feel very confident that this is a worthwhile blade. Again, that's the Reef Knives F6 Leicu inspired survival knife. If you don't have a vehicle knife or a high quality 3V knife, I really can recommend it. I think it's amazing. They have a premium price because it is a specialized tool. It's a USA made blade, guys. That's something that is less and less common. You're not going to see a lot of that. And yes, the price is a little higher, but that's the price you pay for something that you can really rely on. And I'm cool with it. I like it a lot. I hope this was something to pass time for you as you're waiting for the ball to drop for New Year's. And I think I have a couple other videos that are going to come out before midnight. So keep checking back and look for those videos, a little bit more discussion type content.